Welcome to what truly matters. We live in the age of connection. Never before in human history have we had so many ways to reach each other. A text message, a video call, a comment, a like. We're just a tap away from anyone, anywhere in the world. We share our meals, our travels, our achievements. We curate perfect versions of ourselves and broadcast them to an audience that's always watching, always scrolling, always judging. And yet, beneath all this connectivity, there's a quiet epidemic. Asking for support is admitting failure, that showing vulnerability is opening ourselves up to judgment and rejection. So, we don't ask, we suffer in silence, we pretend, we perform. We break quietly behind closed doors where no one can see. But here's what we don't talk about enough. It takes more courage to ask for help than it does to keep pretending you don't need it. It takes more strength to show your wounds than to hide them. It takes more bravery to say, I can't do this alone, than to collapse under the weight of trying. Today, I want to take you into a story that might feel uncomfortably familiar. A story about the cost of independence, the weight of perfection, and the radical act of reaching out. Because if you've ever felt like you have to hold it all together, if you've ever been afraid to show that you're struggling, if you've ever wondered whether asking for help makes you weak, this story is for you. Her name was Olivia, and to everyone who knew her, she was the spreading through our societies. It's invisible. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't trend on social media. But it's there, in the hearts of millions of people who wake up every day feeling profoundly, desperately alone. We've become masters at appearing fine. We've learned to smile through the pain, to say, I'm good, when we're falling apart, to carry burdens that are crushing us while making it look effortless. We've been taught since childhood that needing help is a sign of weakness, that definition of success. At 38, she had built a career that others envied, a life that looked perfect from the outside. She was the friend everyone called when they needed advice, the colleague who never missed a deadline, the daughter who handled every family crisis with grace, the woman who seemed to have it all figured out. But Olivia had a secret, and that secret was slowly killing her. Every morning, she woke up at 5:30 to the sound of an alarm that felt like a physical assault. Before her feet hit the floor, the anxiety was already there, sitting on her chest like a stone. The to-do list would start scrolling through her mind. The presentation at work, her mother's medical appointments, her brother's financial problems that somehow always became her responsibility. The friend's wedding she'd promised to help plan, the volunteer project she'd committed to, the emails, the calls, the expectations. She would lie there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the day pressing down on her before it had even begun. Sometimes she would count her breaths, trying to calm the racing of her heart. 1, 2, 3. But by breath 4, she'd remember something else she'd forgotten to do. Another person she'd let down. Another commitment she was behind on. She would stand in the shower, hot water running over her face, and practice her smile. The one that said everything's under control. The one that made people comfortable. The one that kept them from asking too many questions. She'd perfected this smile over years. It reached her eyes just enough to be convincing, but not so much that it required real emotion. It was efficient. It was safe. It was a lie. By the time she walked into her office, Olivia was already exhausted. But she was also perfect. Hairstyled, makeup flawless, outfit professional, smile ready. No one could see the cracks beneath the surface. The performance was exhausting. Every day, Olivia felt like she was playing a role in a movie that never ended. She was the capable one, the strong one, the one who didn't need help. And she'd played this role for so long that she'd forgotten it was a performance at all. She'd started to believe that this was who she had to be worthy of love, respect, and belonging. Her desk was always organized, her inbox always managed, her calendar color-coded and optimized. To an outside observer, Olivia was the model of efficiency. But what they couldn't see was the cost of maintaining that image. The nights she worked until 2 a.m. because she couldn't say no to another project. The weekends spent responding to emails because being unavailable felt like failing. The lunch breaks in her car where she would sit in silence, too overwhelmed to eat, just trying to gather enough strength to make it through the afternoon. Olivia had started keeping a bottle of antacids in her desk drawer. The knot in her stomach had become so constant, she barely noticed it anymore. It was just part of her baseline now, this low-grade nausea that never quite went away. Her hands would shake sometimes when she was alone. She developed a twitch in her left eye that appeared when she was particularly stressed, which lately was most of the time. But the cost was mounting. Olivia had stopped sleeping well months ago. Her appetite had disappeared. She'd started having panic attacks in her car during lunch breaks, gripping the steering wheel and trying to breathe through the tightness in her chest. Her doctor had suggested therapy, but Olivia had dismissed it immediately. Therapy was for people who couldn't handle their lives. She could handle hers. She just needed to try harder, be more organized, be stronger. The truth Olivia couldn't admit, even to herself, was that she was terrified. Terrified that if she showed even a crack in her armor, people would see her differently. They would lose respect for her. They would stop relying on her. They would discover that she wasn't as capable as they thought. And then what? Who would she be if she wasn't the strong one? So she kept going. She kept pretending. She kept carrying more than any human being should carry, convincing herself that this was what strength looked like, that this was what success required, that this was the price of being a woman who had it all together. But inside, Olivia was drowning, and she was running out of breath. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon, October. Olivia was in the middle of a presentation to senior leadership, the kind of presentation that could make or break a promotion she'd been working toward for 2 years. She'd prepared meticulously. Every slide was perfect, every statistic memorized, every potential question anticipated. She'd arrived at the office at 6 that morning to review her notes one more time. She'd skipped breakfast, her stomach too tight to eat. She'd practiced her opening lines in the bathroom mirror, adjusting her posture, her tone, her expression. Everything had to be perfect. The conference room was full. 12 executives, all watching her, all waiting. Olivia had presented to this group before. She knew most of them personally. But today, something felt different. The air felt thicker. The lights seemed too bright. Her collar felt too tight. She was halfway through when it happened. The room started to tilt. The words on her slides became a blur. Her heart was racing so fast, she thought she might be having a heart attack. The voices of the executives asking questions sounded like they were coming from underwater. And suddenly, Olivia couldn't remember what she was supposed to say next. Her mouth went dry. She could feel sweat beading on her forehead, on the back of her neck. Her hands, holding the remote for her slides, were trembling visibly. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. It was as if her brain had simply shut down, overwhelmed by the pressure it had been under for too long. She stood there frozen, her mouth open but no words coming out. 10 seconds passed. 20. The silence in the room was deafening. She could feel everyone staring at her, waiting, confused. Someone asked if she was okay. She tried to nod, but even that simple movement felt impossible. And then, for the first time in her entire professional life, Olivia did something she'd never allowed herself to do. She admitted she couldn't do it. "I'm sorry," she heard herself say, her voice shaking, barely above a whisper. "I'm not okay. I need to stop." The words hung in the air. For a moment, no one moved. Then the room erupted in concern. Her manager rushed to her side. Someone brought her water. Another person opened a window. Within minutes, she was sitting in her manager's office, and the carefully constructed walls she'd spent decades building were crumbling. Olivia sat in the chair across from her manager's desk, her hands wrapped around a bottle of water she couldn't bring herself to drink. She was shaking, not just her hands now, but her whole body. The adrenaline that had been holding her together was draining away, leaving only exhaustion and shame in its wake. "How long have you been struggling?" her manager asked gently, her voice full of concern rather than judgment. The question broke something in Olivia. Tears came before words could. When she finally spoke, the truth poured out like water from a broken dam. The sleepless nights, the panic attacks, the overwhelming pressure of trying to be everything for everyone while slowly disappearing herself. The fear that asking for help would make her weak, inadequate, a failure. The constant sense that she was one mistake away from everything falling apart. She told her manager about the mornings she couldn't get out of bed, the evenings she sat in her car in the parking lot, gathering courage to go home and face more responsibilities. She confessed that she'd been Googling symptoms of burnout at 3 a.m, terrified by what she read, but unwilling to admit it applied to her. She admitted that she'd become someone she didn't recognize, someone who existed only to perform, to produce, to please. Her manager listened without interrupting, without judgment, with a patience that felt almost foreign to Olivia. And then she said something that changed everything. "Olivia, you've been one of our strongest performers for years. But strength isn't about never needing help. It's about knowing when to ask for it. What you did today, stopping that presentation and telling the truth, that took more courage than anything else you could have done." Those words didn't make sense to Olivia at first. Courage? She'd just fallen apart in front of the entire leadership team. She'd shown weakness. She'd failed. But her manager continued. "Do you know how many people in this company are struggling in silence because they're afraid of looking weak? You just showed them that it's okay to be human. That's not weakness. That's leadership." Olivia left work early that day, something she hadn't done in years. Her manager had insisted, and for once, Olivia didn't fight it. As she drove home, something strange happened. Despite the embarrassment, despite the fear of what everyone would think, there was something else. Relief. A tiny, fragile sense of relief that she'd finally told the truth. The mask had fallen, and underneath it, she was still breathing. That evening, Olivia did something she'd been avoiding for months. She called her best friend Maya, and instead of saying "I'm fine" when Maya asked how she was, Olivia told her the truth. All of it. The struggle, the anxiety, the breakdown, the fear. And Maya, instead of judging her or pulling away, said exactly what Olivia needed to hear. "Thank you for trusting me with this. I've been worried about you for so long, but you always seemed like you didn't need anyone. I'm here, whatever you need." Over the next few weeks, Olivia did the hardest thing she'd ever done. She reached out. She asked for help. She started therapy. She talked to her family about setting boundaries. She told her friends when she was struggling instead of pretending everything was perfect. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, everything began to change. The transformation didn't happen overnight. Olivia didn't wake up one morning suddenly healed, suddenly strong, suddenly okay. Recovery never works that way. But something fundamental shifted when she stopped pretending and started being honest about her struggles. The first thing Olivia noticed was that people didn't pull away. They moved closer. Her colleagues, instead of losing respect for her, seemed to respect her more. Several of them privately told her that they'd been struggling too, but Olivia had always seemed so capable that they felt they had to match that standard. Her vulnerability had given them permission to be human. One co-worker, a woman Olivia had always thought of as put together and confident, pulled her aside a week after the incident. "I've been having panic attacks for 6 months," she confessed, "but I was too scared to tell anyone. When I heard what happened to you and that you were getting help, I finally made an appointment with a therapist. You gave me courage." Olivia was stunned. She'd thought her breakdown would make her an object of pity or gossip. Instead, it had created a ripple effect of honesty. People started talking more, openly about stress, about mental health, about the unsustainable pace of modern work. The culture began to shift, one conversation at a time. Her family, instead of being disappointed, was relieved. Her mother admitted she'd been worried for years, but didn't know how to bring it up. Her brother confessed that he'd felt guilty constantly asking for help, while Olivia never seemed to need anything. The dynamic changed. Relationships that had been one-sided became reciprocal. Olivia learned that letting people help her actually strengthened their connections, rather than weakening them. The first time Olivia's brother offered to help her with something, to drive their mother to a doctor's appointment, so Olivia didn't have to, she almost said no out of habit. But she caught herself. She took a breath, and she said yes. It felt uncomfortable, it felt vulnerable, but it also felt like freedom. In therapy, Olivia began to understand where her fear of asking for help had come from. She traced it back to childhood, to a father who praised her for being independent, and a mother who was so overwhelmed that Olivia had learned early to be the helper, never the helped. She'd internalized the message that her value came from what she could do for others, not from who she was. Asking for help had felt like admitting she had no value. Her therapist helped her see the difference between healthy independence and the toxic self-reliance she'd been practicing. Independence means you can do things yourself when needed, her therapist explained. But what you've been doing is isolation. You've been cutting yourself off from the support that makes us human. That's not strength. That's survival mode. And you can't thrive in survival mode. Olivia started practicing small acts of vulnerability. She asked a neighbor to water her plants when she was away. She told a friend she was having a hard day and just needed to talk. She delegated tasks at work instead of insisting she had to do everything herself. Each time felt terrifying. Each time, nothing bad happened. In fact, good things happened. Connections deepened, trust grew, freedom expanded. But as she unpacked these beliefs, she began to see how distorted they were. She started to understand that needing help didn't make her weak. It made her human. That interdependence wasn't the same as dependence, that there was a profound difference between being capable and being invincible. One of the most surprising discoveries was how much energy she'd been wasting on pretending. The constant performance of perfection had been exhausting. When she stopped doing it, when she allowed herself to be imperfect and honest, she found she had energy for things that actually mattered, for genuine connection, for creativity, for joy, for rest. Olivia also learned to recognize the early warning signs of overwhelm and to ask for help before she reached the breaking point. She built a support system, not just people to help with tasks, but people she could be honest with about how she was feeling. She learned to say no without guilt. She learned that disappointing people occasionally was better than destroying herself trying to please everyone. She created boundaries that once would have felt impossible. She stopped checking work email after 7 in the evening. She started saying, "I need to think about that before I commit," instead of immediately saying yes to every request. She learned to ask, "What can I take off my plate to make room for this?" when new responsibilities came her way. And perhaps most importantly, Olivia learned that asking for help didn't mean she was helpless. It meant she was wise. It meant she understood her limits. It meant she valued her well-being enough to protect it. It meant she was brave enough to be vulnerable. A year after her breakdown, Olivia found herself mentoring a younger colleague who was clearly struggling. The woman was trying to juggle too much, refusing to delegate, insisting she was fine when she clearly wasn't. Olivia saw herself in this woman, and she knew exactly what to say. "I need to tell you something," Olivia began. "A year ago, I had a panic attack in the middle of a presentation to leadership. I thought my career was over. I thought I'd shown everyone that I was weak and incapable. But you know what actually happened? That moment became the turning point of my life, because I finally stopped pretending I could do everything alone. And that didn't make me weaker. It made me stronger. It made me real. It made me free." The young woman's eyes filled with tears. "But how do you ask for help without looking incompetent?" Olivia smiled, recognizing the question she'd once asked herself. You don't ask for help because you're incompetent. You ask for help because you're human. And being human isn't a weakness. It's the whole point. At the end of the day, asking for help is one of the most courageous things a human being can do. It goes against everything we've been taught. It requires us to admit we don't have all the answers. It demands that we trust other people with our vulnerability. It means showing the parts of ourselves we've been taught to hide. But here's what I want you to understand. Your worth is not measured by how much you can carry alone. Your strength is not proven by your ability to suffer in silence. Your value is not determined by how little you need from others. We were never meant to do life alone. We were designed for connection, for community, for mutual support. The idea that independence is the highest virtue is a lie that's making us sick. True strength includes the wisdom to know when you need help and the courage to ask for it. Think about it. When someone you care about comes to you for help, do you think less of them? Do you see them as weak? Of course not. You feel honored that they trusted you. You feel closer to them because they let you in. You want to support them. So why do we assume others will judge us differently than we judge them? The truth is, vulnerability creates connection. When you show your struggles, you give others permission to show theirs. When you ask for help, you create space for authentic relationship. When you admit you're not okay, you allow others to be honest about their own pain. Your courage becomes contagious. If you're watching this and you're struggling with something right now, if you're carrying more than you can bear, if you're afraid to show that you're not okay, I want you to hear this. Asking for help doesn't make you weak. It makes you brave. It makes you honest. It makes you human. And being human, with all our limitations and needs and vulnerabilities, is nothing to be ashamed of. The people who truly love you don't want you to be perfect. They want you to be real. They want the opportunity to support you the way you've probably supported them. When you ask for help, you're not burdening them. You're honoring them by trusting them with your truth. So, if today is the day you stop pretending, if today is the day you reach out, if today is the day you admit you can't do it alone, that's not the day you failed. That's the day you became brave. If this message resonated with you, if something in Olivia's story felt familiar, if you've ever struggled with asking for help, please hit that like button. It helps this message reach people who need to hear it. Subscribe to the channel's Reflections on What Truly Matters in Life. And please share this video with someone who might be carrying too much alone. Your share could be the permission they need to finally reach out. Leave a comment and tell me, have you ever had to ask for help? What was the hardest part? What did you learn? Your story could be exactly what someone else needs to read today. We heal together, we grow together, and we become brave together, one act of vulnerability at a time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your openness. Thank you for being willing to consider that maybe, just maybe, needing help is not a flaw. It's part of being beautifully, courageously human. Take care of yourself. Ask for help when you need it. And remember, you are not alone, even when it feels like you are. Especially then. See you tomorrow with another reflection on what truly matters. And you, what truly matters to you.